Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. This is a peer spotlight webinar titled Supporting Research in Cancer Centers. My name is Carlos Moncada. I'm the Director of Client Services at InfoReady. Today we have panelists from two cancer centers, Fred Hutch Cancer Center and Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. So we're really excited to have a conversation with them. Before we get into that, though, we're gonna go over some logistics, and I'll share a little bit of information about InfoReady. So the webinar today is scheduled for 60 minutes. We'll do roughly 40 minutes of discussion with the panelists, and then we'll save the last 20 minutes or so for Q&A with all of you that are attending. Your phones are muted. And so if you do want to submit a question, please use the Q&A tool in Zoom to submit the question, and then we will bring those up during the second portion of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll email that out to everyone who registered later. And then since you have it in your email, you'll be able to share it with your colleagues as well, if you desire. After the webinar is over, we'll also load a survey on screen. So when you exit, a browser tab will open with a survey for you to fill out. And then now for a little bit of information about InfoReady. InfoReady is a software platform that's used to collect forms, applications, nominations, all kinds of stuff like that. And then you're able to review and approve it through a workflow you set up. You're able to track the progress, and then you're able to make and share decisions in the system, assign follow-up annual reports or any sort of follow-up form, and report on everything that you're collecting. So very powerful tool all in one place. All of your stakeholders go to the same place. So the data is all in there. Now, those general concepts are allow InfoReady to be used in a wide variety of ways. On screen, you're seeing what slide we call the many ways to use InfoReady. So you can see here, we have use cases in different categories that are applicable all over an institution. And we are happy to share details on how you might do it. We can connect you to administrators at other institutions who are already doing it. And one great thing in the system is that you could even share templates with other admins, both inside and outside of your institution. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just refine it and make it better and fit your needs. So now we get to the reason why you're here. We have two panelists today. First, we have Julie DeJager, Deputy Associate Director for Administration at Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. That's affiliated with Case Western Reserve University. And then we have Katie Smolnycki, Director of Institutional Partnerships at Fred Hutch Cancer Center. So I have some bios to read for you. Julie is, in addition to being part of Case Cancer Center, has been on the administration team since 2013 and has extensive experience with grant management, process development, and data collection. Julie was part of the implementation team when Case Comprehensive Cancer Center began using InfoReady in 2019. She lives in Cleveland with her husband, 3 boys, and a geriatric bulldog. That's kind of a nice addition there, Julie. And then Katie, we mentioned she's a Director of Institutional Partnerships. She joined Fred Hutch in 2017 with roles spanning business development and institutional giving. She works closely with corporate and foundation partners active in the data science, entrepreneurship, and commercialization spaces. So Katie is actively involved in the Seattle ecosystem and volunteers with local life science organizations and is the Chair Emeritus and Director at Large for the Seattle chapter of Women in Bio. And recently and her team as the co-chair for the EMAPS, which is an executive mentoring program for women in bio nationally. So two great panelists today, hoping to learn a ton from them. Welcome, Julie and Katie.
Thanks.
Glad to be here.
Thanks so much. We really do appreciate you being here. I've had a couple really pleasant conversations with you so far, and let's invite the rest of the group into this conversation. So first, let's talk more. First question is going to be to Julie. Julie, we have your name and your role on screen. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you're using InfoReady?
Sure. We started using InfoReady mainly for pilot grants. So our pilot grant program really expanded in the past few years, and we were just doing everything by email. And we needed something, and we discovered that our CTSC, our clinical and translational scientific collaboration group was also looking for something, and so together we were looking at InfoReady, so that the university could purchase the license as a whole, and so and then some other parts of the university wanted to use it as well, and so initially we all bought it for using it for pilot awards, but we pretty quickly recognized that it could have some other useful capabilities, and so we've been using it as well for limited submission competitions, and then more recently for our membership applications for the Cancer Center. So that's more Cancer Center specific, that we have to collect all this information about members and then also track them down after we appoint them as members. And so we've been using InfoReady for membership applications for about 2 years now.
Thanks, Julie. I will definitely be asking follow-up questions on a few of those things. Katie, to you, can you tell us a little bit more about how you're using InfoReady?
Yeah, so at Fred Hutch, initially we got Fred InfoReady about 1.5 years ago. And prior to that, like Julie, we were doing a lot of things over email. We had an internal database that was on SharePoint that had all of our external funding opportunities for like American Cancer Society, AACR, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And then our institution acquired Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, which was co-managed by Fred Hutch, the University of Washington, and Seattle Children's. And because of this merger, our internal systems weren't working as well as we would like. So we decided to seek out new systems. And one of those systems that we identified was InfoReady. So we got into the process of evaluating that. And then about 1 year ago, we actually put it into implementation for all of our external funding opportunities. In addition, like Julie, we use this for internal awards that we are doing for like seed and pilot grants. We use them for commercialization grants. Also for some industry sponsored opportunities where they are running an RFP, we are using it for that as well. And then limited applicant awards and submissions. So we dabbled in prizes, but we're not quite there yet.
Understood. It's a lot all at once, right? Merging multiple institutions together and adopting new software and processes. Sometimes
it was a lot of time, and we still haven't fully transitioned everything over, but it's our primary source for doing things now.
Right. And since this is still fresh, Katie, what's the before and after been like in terms of impact on staff?
Yeah, in terms of before, there's about 10 different groups across the organization that are using InfoReady now, and all of us had our own different systems. Some of us were using RedCap, SharePoint, emails, Google or Microsoft Forms, and just it wasn't consistent. So InfoReady has really allowed us to be more consistent. about how we are doing things just process wise, but also in some of the questions that we're asking, trying to sync up things so that researchers know where to go to look for funding opportunities, because before it was just on various different pages. They never knew where to look. So now with InfoReady, everything is centralized. And so that's really good. I think for me, one thing that I haven't got to use yet that I will be using soon is progress reporting. So right now I'm doing that solely by emails. And let's just say that I haven't asked for as many progress reports as I probably should have. So getting that set up for our new round of awards, I think will be very beneficial for me to keeping track on how these projects are going. And then also we started using it for our reviewers. So before we once again did that as an Excel sheet. And then I was like, I don't want to play with Excel. I want to put this in like a form. So then I moved over to Microsoft Forms. And then we just piloted it for our internal commercialization fund, the Evergreen Fund, with external reviewers. So I'm very excited. It worked very well for that. So I think it's going to save us a lot of time. Obviously, we're still setting things up. And so that first round is going to be a little bit more time consuming adapting to a new process. But overall, I think once we're in the system and we get everything up and running that first time, then it will be duplicating those things and just minor tweaks. So I think long term, it will save us a lot of time. And then there's probably new ways that we could use it that we just haven't explored yet.
No, absolutely. You touched on some things. I'm going to come back around to progress reports and talking about the importance of collecting them to measure outcomes and return on investment a little later. But going to Julie, you were part of the group that implemented InfoReady at Case Western several years ago now. It's probably been 2018.
Yeah, about.
So we're 6 years in. You remember the before times. Could you tell us a little bit more about how it's impacted your operations in the last 6 years?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the there's a couple different helpful things. One helpful thing, and I'm not going to rank them. I'm just not going to say this is the most. One helpful thing is just the ability to share the workload a little bit better, to assign co-administrators. So before we had a shared email address that reviewers and pilot grants were supposed to come to, but inevitably things would go to individual people rather than to that shared email address. And so, having things go through InfoReady means that administrators really can pick up the ball if someone, we've had some maternity leaves, for example. So we don't need to worry about what's hiding in someone else's inbox. So I think that's been really helpful. Just being able to go back and find the information. Again, we had a way of storing information in our shared box drives, and we still use our shared box drives extensively, but in the before times when our pilot grants administration was sort of heavily resting on one individual, things would just get lost in that individual's inbox. And so again, being able to go back and have a historical record is really useful. And I think there's just more standardization of what the applicants are expecting to upload, or we've been able to be really clear about what we need from people, and our whole system, our whole process has been a little bit more standardized, and that's really useful. I will say, and this is a problem we've had with a couple other software systems where we were sort of early adopters of the software system and got it up running, and then the system added great new what's the word? New features, and adopting the new features has been hard for us. So like a lot of our InfoReady forms are on the old format, and I'd like to see us start to to use the new forms, but it's so easy to click copy and just copy our old form. So that's something we're still working on when we have a little more time, like putting everything into new forms, because the new forms are awesome, but it's just really easy to hit copy. So that's a problem of being an early adopter, I think.
Julie, you're just describing a conundrum that we're trying to resolve, because the system is designed to make it easy to launch every subsequent cycle every year.
Right.
It up, you take the time, you set it up, and then it's just a couple button clicks next fiscal year, or next cycle, whenever it happens, and you're off to the races, and it's all the same. So that from a data management perspective, it's all the same.
Right.
But there's all these new features, and you want to use them.
Right.
Logic,
Yeah.
or better ways to build your form, and or better ways to have the workflow come about. Can I share something with you? I'm not going to tell everyone else on the call this, but we're actually going to be releasing probably in the third quarter of 2024 a tool to help migrate from
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
summer project. It's a summer project for you.
Yeah.
Much easier.
That would be great, because the new forms are definitely prettier, but the old forms are still functional enough that hitting the copy button is tempting.
Right.
The one other implementation thing I'll note, and one of the reasons we liked InfoReady is that it allows people to use either the single sign-on with our organization, or to go in without using single sign-on. And I think, like Katie, we're a consortium institution, and so we have a university and 2 hospitals, and we're 3 separate institutions. And so not everyone has a Case Western single sign-on. And so if a cancer center member at the Cleveland Clinic wants to apply for our pilot grants, and they don't have a Case Western single sign-on, or they have one and they've forgotten it, it was always a pain. It's just a complete nightmare to like get them to do the thing. And now they can still create an InfoReady account without their single sign-on. And so just it was a much lower barrier for entry for a lot of for working with people who at a complex consortium institution. So that was the other implementation note I wanted to flag too. So
okay, no, thanks for mentioning that, because it can definitely be a barrier if people have trouble just getting in to try to apply to something, or try to review, or try to provide a letter of recommendation. So thanks for bringing up that point, because you want that to be as seamless and as possible, right? No hurdles in participation, right? No hurdles in participation. So you bring up all the different groups you're affiliated with, but both of you are. How can you tell, and this question is going to be for both of you, how does the interaction work? How do you promote your opportunities to the different groups? How do you identify getting reviewers for opportunities that are open for everyone? Or because it's kind of this mix of people that you can draw from and that can apply. Let's go to Katie, because it's
Sure. So in terms of how we are promoting opportunities, we also, in addition to like the InfoReady microsites, we got Engagement Hub. So we use that, and we really like the ability to allow researchers to filter, to identify opportunities that are most relevant to them. So we use the Engagement Hub primarily, and then we also have our listservs that we push out opportunities to. So for our corporate and foundation opportunities, we have a listserv for that, that we basically just share with this listserv from InfoReady, and then it gets pushed out to everyone on there. There are also our limited applicant award or limited submission listserv that we use, and then some of our other departments and divisions that are using the system have like their own listservs that they'll send it out to. Most recently, our Office of Community Outreach and Engagement used it, and so we had our system set up so that only certain email addresses, the ending, could create accounts. And because we were doing this new opportunity that was open to like local organizations across Washington state, we actually opened that up more readily. So like they sent it out to all their external partners, and then they were able to use our system to collect the information, do all the applications and the reviews. So that was super useful. And then in terms of identifying reviewers, for our limited applicant awards, we have a set committee that is members of our consortium that are reviewing them. For like our Evergreen Fund is a commercialization focused one. So we actually work with external partners. So we have reviewers from venture capital. We have reviewers from biotech and pharma that are leaders there, just trying to get different perspectives on what different partners are looking for. And then for some of our consortium grants, once again, we have a committee that they pull together based on like what applications they're getting. So it kind of depends on the funding mechanism, but typically if it's open to the consortium, we'll generally have members across the consortium there. And then for like specific opportunities, we'll identify the most relevant committee members to help us make decisions.
Thanks, Katie. Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, so it's pretty similar, but we found that most people were finding funding opportunities, so specifically for our internal pilot awards, because that's the main thing we're using it for, and our limited submissions. But people were generally going to our website for that, or from our newsletter. We had Engagement Hub, I think, briefly, and we just found it wasn't where people were ready or were used to going, and so that's not where traffic was coming from. You know, we have a website for our funding opportunities specifically, and put them in our weekly newsletter, but really the best source is sort of more direct. And so when we have a pilot award that we know is for a particular area or for a particular, you know, young investigator group, we direct things to department heads and say, can you share this with people in your department that you think would be especially interested in it? And that's where we get the most response, is when people are given a, you know, personal invitation. But for other non-pilot things, so like we have a summer research program for undergrads to come from other institutions to Case Western, and we use InfoReady for that application process, and so that goes out on an email, and that gets shared to our training manager has a whole bunch of contacts at different institutions, and so I'm not quite sure where that gets posted on those institutions, but they find their way to our InfoReady link. So and then similar to Katie, we have committees that are standing committees for different opportunities, for different things. We have a slightly smaller one for our limited submissions. And then we have some bigger standing committees for our pilot grants. And then our scientific directors of the pilot grant programs review the applications, and then pick the reviewers from our standing committees depending on the content of the pilot applications. So that remains a tricky process, because just selecting those people and finding who's available and willing at the time. If you have a solution for that, then let us know. But that's a pretty manual, pretty personal task to ask people to do that. So
well, because you're asking for a commitment to
right.
involvement.
But having the standing committee is sort of essential, because otherwise you wouldn't know where to start.
I have had another question about promoting your opportunities, and then I want to get back to the standing committee topic. Are either of you using anything such as MailChimp or anything to send out emails and kind of track who's opening and engaging with the email, since you have such a potentially wide audience?
It's a yes, but I don't have the info. So we have a communications team who sends out our weekly newsletter, and they track opens and things like that. But I don't. I actually haven't asked them specifically about like who ends up on the funding opportunities website or, on other parts of the website. So so yes, but that's all I can say.
And then for us, we currently, as the core teams that are using it, are not using MailChimp. I know some of our partners more in the philanthropy space are using it for their stuff, but we haven't leveraged any of those systems for tracking how our researchers are responding to our emails and looking at different things. So it's an opportunity, but we're just not looking at that data yet. And we haven't been asked for that data. So hopefully no one's watching this and asks us for that data later.
Right. Well, I was just thinking of it from the research and development perspective of, hey, getting qualified researchers interested in the opportunities. But coming back around to the standing research committees, how do you get people on them? How long's the commitment for? How do you engage with them?
So I guess I can start. So for our LAA committee, it is a bunch of our senior leaders, so SVPs of all of our divisions, EVPs, and then our advancement and promotions committee. So that is just a set group that our senior leadership decides. For our Evergreen Fund, and I keep speaking about this because this is the one I manage. That one
I'm
we
gonna be asking about
typically,
that one later. I've got a note, Katie.
okay. So for our Evergreen Fund, we typically refresh the list like once a year. So this is an annual call for proposals, and we usually refresh that list once a year. We have some people that have been on it since its inception about 6-7 years ago. We did take a brief break in COVID, but it's one time a year. There's a full committee meeting in virtually, and then there's like presentations in person that everyone comes from to Seattle. So we had people come from London that were venture capitalists that flew to Seattle on their own dime to actually engage with our researchers, which is amazing. And so for that, yeah, we look at our close partners and friends of like in the VC and biotech and pharma space and see who would be a good fit based on the applications we're expecting to get. And so it's a smaller commitment than like our standing LAA committee.
Yeah. And we have, so I think some of our committees are a little different. So we have a small group of folks from our senior leadership, like 5 people who sort of consistently willing to review our limited submission opportunities. There's fewer of those usually, so it's less of a commitment, but it's more of a maybe more of a commitment from the cancer center that we're putting forth this applicant. So that's just a few of our senior leaders. And then we have a couple different groups that we pull from for pilot reviews. And none of these standing committees, like if you're on a standing committee, it doesn't mean that you always have to be available to accept the possibility of reviewing. It means sort of I might be available, but ask me first. So that's how our committees tend to work for our pilot reviews. So for our junior investigator awards, we have an American Cancer Society institutional research grant, and so every 3 years, when we renew that grant, we revise that list of committee members, and we make sure that that list includes some former awardees of the ACS IRG pilot awards, and we also sort of make sure that there's a good balance of basic and population and clinical researchers on that list. And then for all our other pilot awards, our scientific director of the pilot awards kind of keeps his own informal list again of people who have expressed willingness to help out, but then we always reach out to them first and say, okay, we have a pilot award that might be in your your area, would you be willing to help? And then if we get a pilot award that doesn't match any of our current committee members, we have some scientific liaison admins who identify some people we might invite to review, and then if they're happy to keep doing that, to sort of stay on that list. So that's what we do.
Thanks for sharing. I know that getting and managing the reviewers is such a critical component. So I appreciate you sharing how you do that a little bit with the audience, because everyone does it a little bit differently. They have their own local needs in terms of how it has to get done. Katie, you've brought up the Evergreen Fund multiple times. It's a commercialization program. You are very excited about it.
Yes.
Could you tell us more about this Evergreen Fund?
Yeah. So our Evergreen Fund, one of the things that our business development office or technology transfer office, since I know some places use different terms, one of the things that we notice when we engage with potential partners as we go out into the world and talk about the research is sometimes there's a gap in what a potential industry partner would want or a venture capitalist wants. And so we have the Evergreen Fund, which offers 2 awards. We have a pilot fund award, which is about $50,000. We're hoping to increase that next year, and beyond pilot funds, which are $200,000. And the goal for this is really to help those researchers, particularly those beyond pilots, do some of those experiments that are less essentially sexy that NIH might not fund. So doing stabilization studies or doing some other things that you might need if a company is looking into filing an IND with the government. So in terms of that, we have an external advisory committee that is venture capitalists and biopharma folks, just because they're the ones that will be eventually making decisions on should we invest in this, whether we're going to license it or do a sponsored research agreement or spin it out into a new company. Initially, we had an internal committee for this, but we realized that there was a disconnect between what internally we thought was interesting and what external people that are actually going to be licensing these technologies thought. So we really have transitioned to an external advisory committee, and it's been really great. We provide the reviewers, or we provide the applicants with all the reviews so that they really can see stuff that are possible opportunities for them to explore for future grants. And we've had some really good success stories of like researchers taking that feedback from their reviewers, modifying their research plans, and then eventually that researcher was able to get we're like at the very, very final stages, but we're looking at a license that is like coming down the pathway. So it's a really great funding mechanism to help us translate our research discoveries into something that can be taken to the bedside, because there's only so much we can do as research institutions. We really need industry partnership.
That sounds great. You know, you finding that gap that was kind of unmet, and you created a program, a fund to help get people to the other side.
It's kind of my baby. That's why I'm like so passionate about it.
Well, yeah, that's great that you know that you're able to be involved in something that does make an impact. I like that. Julie, do you have a baby you want to talk about? That's program
not that exciting, not quite as exciting to that's InfoReady. I have a baby, but it's not InfoReady. It's but yeah, I will say that we use InfoReady for our membership applications, and I've started to get some questions about that from others, because I sort of have big hopes for it, but I'm not quite sure that it's there yet. So because we still the ever-going problem of research administration is collecting documentation from people, and so one of the exciting things about having our membership in InfoReady would be to use the progress report tool to collect information from people. And we haven't done it yet because we've only we've only been collecting membership applications through InfoReady for a little bit, and so certainly not all of our members are in InfoReady. So we've played around with some ideas about, well, how could we get all the other members into InfoReady? Would it be useful, or would the older members not use it anyway? But to be able to push out a progress report request to say, look, you need to send us your biosketch. Here's a reminder to send us your biosketch. You sent us the wrong biosketch. To push out those reminders automatically is still something we're interested in doing. We just haven't quite figured out if InfoReady could potentially help, or maybe it could once we use some of the newer features that we haven't used so far. So, but we're excited that we have the membership information in InfoReady, and it's been a useful tool.
Well, that's great. Great to hear that. And so follow up on membership. You're probably not at this point yet, but do you think it would be plausible to use progress reports for membership renewal? Do you do annual renewal?
We don't do annual renewals. I forget what we say we do. But we sort of keep track of people who because we use a separate database called eval, which a lot of cancer centers have heard of, to track our members' productivity, their external grants, their publications, and so using that, we kind of track who's still active and who's not active, and can sort of follow up using that. But it's this eval doesn't eval is more of an internal database for us, and someone asks about the source of truth, and I'll point out InfoReady is our intake database. So this is where people are giving us their information, and then we can we match our fields up to eval. We stick it into eval. Eval is our source of truth, because eval gives us cancer center specific reports and connects things in different ways. So InfoReady is our intake, but it has the important piece of information, which is this person's name and their email address, and we could use that to request biosketches or other support documents, which eval doesn't do, because eval just talks to the administrators running reports. It doesn't talk to the applicants or members themselves. And that's why I think there's some possibility here, but it would involve sort of back adding all the members who didn't apply through InfoReady, right, to InfoReady somehow, and then even though InfoReady is really easy to use and they don't have to use single sign-on, I still anticipate annoyance from people who have been here a long time and don't know what this is. So it hasn't happened yet. It's just I think this is an interesting possibility.
Well, some of that's moving data around, right? If we were able to get that information out of eval, for example, and import, we'll call it the legacy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Get that into InfoReady, and that would be a good start, for sure. Now here, would it be beneficial to have InfoReady connected to eval, right, to your source of truth? So
in some ways it already is, because we match the fields in InfoReady with the fields in eval, and there's a pretty straightforward import tool in eval. So I can get an Excel sheet and I can put the Excel sheet. It's not a huge, and also we're only getting 1 or 2 membership applications at a time, and I often do them manually anyway. Just
so it's only 1 or 2.
Right. If it's if I was coming in with a huge batch of them, but it does allow us to match up exactly what we're looking for, so that's good. But yeah, I think the question of the is it worth the effort of putting the legacy members in there if these are also the problem people are the people who don't reply to emails anyway. So are they good? Like, they're probably not going to, like, if they're not replying to an email directly from me, they're probably not going to reply to a system email. So that's, again, these are the human problems of cancer
Like
center administration.
that set of people that
Right.
apply to anything. Yeah, totally understandable. All right, so we are at 22 the hour. I have lots more questions, but I want to make sure we get to any questions that have come in during Q&A. One of the ones you started answering, do you use InfoReady for intake only or as your source of truth? So you answered that. Katie, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so I think we are moving towards using it as our source of truth. So for like all of our external funding opportunities that we're pushing for, like the American Cancer Society, etc., we are using that. And then we actually are trying to do a little bit more in terms of data analytics and combined with our old source of data. So we're actually putting all that, doing an export and throwing that into Smartsheet where we can report on certain things like how many opportunities are evolving health equity and disparities and stuff that our leadership is actually interested in. For some of our like internal pilot and seed grant opportunities, we're moving there more slowly because we're approaching some of the first times that different groups are using it. So I think going forward, that will be the case, but we're in the process of building this.
And I will say it's that I answered it in the context of the membership application where it's intake only. But for pilot awards, it's sort of the source of truth because they don't we move the pilot award title and PI to eval, but we don't move the application itself anywhere or who else applied. Eval ends up storing our pilot awardees, but it doesn't end up storing all the applicants. And that's really important information. So if I want to go in and see, how many people applied or who's applying all the time and they're not getting funded, then InfoReady is the place to find that information.
So it's process program dependent.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Because there's different functions being managed at InfoReady, and different like portions of it. So
right.
So no, it makes complete sense. Someone in the Q&A said, we are just now transitioning to InfoReady for membership applications and have been using InfoReady since 2018. Yeah, there's another group there that's using it for membership. Another question we got was, how many NCI designated cancer centers does InfoReady support? It's several dozen. So if anyone who looks in the Q&A, that last question was for Emil Cancer Center. They're an NCI. They're a comprehensive cancer center. We got a couple here. We did a webinar back in the fall with a couple more. It is several dozen. I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm at liberty of naming them all, but it's several dozen. For anyone asking that question. And then, excuse me. So we're talking about data, right? We've been talking data here, and it's important. So some of the types of programs you're running are, pilot grants, seed grants, different types of funding opportunities. So a question for you is, what type of data do you try to collect from these folks in terms of progress report type to measure outcomes for return on an ROI purposes, right? The leadership probably wants to know, okay, we're spending the money. What's happening because of it?
So I will, I'll refer people to the eval website where there's a seminar I gave on ROI for pilot grants a couple of years ago. But we use eval to sort of create our ROI reports, but then where's the data coming from? And so far, just to be totally honest, we have not used InfoReady for progress reports. Again, I think it's partly because of our too early adoption. I think the progress report, like we just attended the progress report webinar, I think it was last month, and our pilots grant manager was very excited, and so this summer when she has some more time, we're going to play with a little bit more. But we because our progress report data goes into eval, we want it to match up again exactly with the eval fields. And with at least the older InfoReady progress report, there were some custom fields, but they were a little too open-ended. So if we wanted someone to provide their grant number, so we got this pilot awards, you got this pilot, we say you have this pilot award, what external grants did you receive afterward? Or you had this pilot award, what publications did you receive afterward? Or did you publish afterward? We needed the fields to be a little bit more formatted exactly how we need it to be in eval. And so we started using Google Forms. And that was also a little bit more useful, or not Google Forms, something called Jot Form that we already use for another program. And that was useful as well, because we have a lot of pilot awards from before the time that we started using InfoReady. And so right now we're working on our Cancer Center support grant renewal. And so we sent out our Jot form to everyone who received a pilot award, even the people who didn't apply through InfoReady, and then put that information into eval so that we could get out some return on investment reports. But it's so important. I mean, I don't want to play down the important, like InfoReady has still been our source of truth for here's the pilots that we made since 2018 when we started this process. And again, I think the new progress report templates are more we're going to play with them. I think they can do more for us.
You're being so kind, Julie. Thank you.
Well, I just feel badly because I know that we adopted it before some of these features came out, and I just haven't had time to play with them. So
no. I'll get, because the people, this is helpful because the people on the webinar are at different stages, right? It's not like they started existing once they started using InfoReady. They've been around for decades.
Right.
Essentially.
Well, and yeah, like I said, there's still, everybody here is going to have stuff from before they implemented InfoReady, and so Jot forms we appreciate.
Right. So I think that's helpful information for people.
And I guess one question that I have for you, Julie, is what is eval? Because I have no idea what it is.
Sure, it stores information about our Cancer Center members. I'm trying to remember. The company used to be Forte. It's now run by a company called Advara, which also does Encore.
Okay.
And so it stores information about members, members, external grants, and so it creates your data table too, and members publications, which it pulls directly from PubMed. So that whole process is much simpler. And then we can also store information about internal pilot awards, and then we can link our internal pilot awards with the external grants or with the publications. So it's those reports are ugly. That's a whole nother topic, but it's useful. So
awesome. Yeah, because I didn't know, and I had a couple of my teammates that are listening in asking me this question, so I figured I would ask you just because I had no idea either.
Well, thanks, Julie. That's helpful. Hey, Julie, there's another question for you here. They say, the person says, I use InfoReady for pilot funding opportunities. Please, can you share your InfoReady membership application template? Thanks. So
I'd be happy to, but how do I do that?
We'll connect offline, but there's actually a feature in the system that allows you to share a template with other admins, both at your institution and outside of your institution.
Yeah.
So we'll connect you with that person. And then here's another question. Do you have a comprehensive training program for brand new InfoReady users like myself from Upstate Medical University's Cancer Center research? So we have InfoReady training, of course, but I guess a question for both of you, what kind of training do you provide new staff members?
Yeah, so I will start from Fred Hutch. When we first implemented, we actually came up with like our own like quick guide of like commonly asked questions. We kind of found a couple on the internet as well. So it's like, how do you create an account? What things you need to do? So we did that for potential applicants. And then in terms of our administrators, we do kind of one-on-one training with them, trying to help them take their process and adapt it to InfoReady to see what makes sense. Because I will say that myself and then a couple others are kind of like our super users. So we have like the best insight into how things work best in InfoReady. And sometimes we don't know the answer, and then we'll reach out to you all for support on that. But it's kind of a one-on-one training for administrators, and then like a blanket document that we had for like our reviewers and our applicants. And I'm happy to share some of those if people want.
Yeah, and I'll say we very similarly, we have one-on-one trainings with our new admins, and then we often just point them to the InfoReady support that exists because it's so great. So you know, I know a lot of our new administrators, I just point to the available resources. And then for the applicants themselves, the reviewers, we have a little bit of guidance, but honestly, there hasn't been a lot of pushback. Like when we've implemented other new systems, I remember creating these long documents exactly like you click here, you have to do this, and we just haven't had too much of that. Like we haven't, it's been intuitive enough for our users. You know, we certainly get some people who have problems and we walk them through it, but it's been refreshing compared to some other systems that require so much more guidance for PIs. So
It's great to hear. The people who have the trouble, are they the same ones that never reply to your emails?
Yes. You have a good sense of that, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that story repeats itself a lot. So we are down to our last 7 minutes here. If anyone has additional questions, please use the Q&A feature here. And I think we'll be able to get to one, possibly two, but probably only one more question there. I have more questions here. I'm not going to ask any loaded questions that are going to take 15 minutes. We don't have enough time for that. So I'll do this. What is an uncommon or interesting way you're using InfoReady? Julie, you're unmuted, so you first.
I guess I feel like I've answered that already with our membership.
Membership. Oh, okay.
You know, I think in the newer template, I mean, I know it's uncommon because there's this field called title, and it's not really a title. You know, there's not a title of your membership. It's just so we have people write their name again in the title field, but they don't seem to mind. So I think I've already talked about that a little bit. So.
And I think for Fred Hutch, us using it for external funding opportunities, like I keep saying ACS, AACR, et cetera, I think that is relatively unique based on what I've heard from other like peer institutions using the system.
Thanks. And Julie, you know, you did the eval webinar and someone's asking for the link to that webinar recording.
I think I have found it. So I can, I can type the answer, right? That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at we're connecting people here right now. Okay, while you're doing that, question for Katie. What are just a takeaway or a best practice to share with the people on the
Yeah.
call?
I think just always double checking your work the first time you're doing something, and doing like a test competition where you can test some of the features has been really useful for us, so we can prevent errors when we're actually doing with external folks. So I think that is a good practice, and just always be asking questions to your experts at your institution or InfoReady themselves, because they're very helpful, and like all the resources you have are fabulous in helping us find answers when we need them.
Thanks so much, Katie. That's a good tip. Julie?
I was typing, but the question was tips.
Yeah, I just
Um,
got like a takeaway or best practice to share. You're a
sure. I mean,
seasoned pro at an
well,
InfoReady.
I think my tip is to adopt new features, to not get too stuck in your ways. But we have we'll have a little bit more time after our CCSG renewal goes in, and that's we're excited about adopting a bunch of new things. So
That's all. Well, so summer projects.
right.
Yeah. We got one more question in here. This one is directed to Katie because you just brought up RFAs.
Yeah.
Question is, for clarification, when using InfoReady for external RFAs, does that mean it functions as a system-to-system submission program as well?
No. So one of the things that we do is clearly state in like red bold letters at the top that this does not replace the external funding website in that application. We use it because we offer grant support, so editing and whatnot. And so it's a way to alert us that you're interested in applying. So we'll take like a sentence or two in your project title. So we make it very clear, including the links to link out. I know there's at one point a bulletin board feature, but that wasn't quite what we needed. So we do it like a traditional like opportunity that you're like doing for pilot awards that are internally. But instead of having apply now, we have like alert our team if you're interested in applying. And then make sure that all the materials to link them to ACS or the Mark Foundation will be there so that they clearly know where they're going. We also have a blurb about all of our like policies for applying for external funders, just so that people have all the resources that they may need. And particularly with indirect costs, a lot of them don't cover that full amount of doing research. So then it's like a reminder, don't forget to go to your division to get that waiver. And that's something that I think maybe in the future, that waiver process, maybe we could figure out how to do that in InfoReady, because right now, most of the groups are doing that via email. And there's one that's using RedCap for it, but it's like not consistent. And so having that historic data going forward could be very useful.
Right. Thanks for clarifying. And you got to thank you in the chat for it. All right. So we're at the end of our time here. Thank you so much to Julie DeJager from Case Comprehensive Cancer Center and from Katie Smolnycki at Fred Hutch Cancer Center. I really appreciate your time and your insights today that you shared. I think lots of people here were getting into the conversation, so I think they appreciate it as well. I'm going to share some contact information for InfoReady on screen right now. And so if you have questions about adopting InfoReady, my colleague Max Dinerman would love to receive your email or your phone call. Now, if you have questions about your existing license or you need support, contact me or the support team. They are great. It just rave reviews for the support team. They do really wonderful work. I can never stop saying great things about them. And so, yeah, here's some contact information on screen. And with that, I want to thank everyone on the call right now. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We'll send out a recording later this week, and there's also the survey afterwards. If you could it would be so kind as to fill that out. All right, then. Thanks everyone for the hour. Have a great day and a great week. Hopefully the weekend gets here fast for you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.